Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So it's time for part 2 of the bug out vehicle loadout, checking out what's underneath the Diamondback cover. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would encourage you to go watch that. I will post a link right here. This is going to be the second part in a 3-part series about what's underneath the Diamondback tonneau cover. Once again, this tonneau cover is made of diamond plated aluminum. It can hold up to 1,600 pounds, and it has galvanized steel rods that lock underneath the truck's rail system in order to ensure that nobody can get in there. So it's basically as strong as your tailgate. Even if they were to break into your tailgate, in order to get into the bin section, they would literally have to crawl in through the truck bed and try to get out whatever they could by that way. So it would be very challenging for them to do that. In order to get into the Diamondback cover itself, it's going to take some aggressive prying, and it's going to be far more difficult than any other tonneau cover in the market to break into. So for that reason, it's one of the safest ways to securely store your survival and preparedness supplies on the go. Alright, so continuing on with the gear loadout, I have these road flares. These are made by the Orion company, which is pretty much the industry standard for any sort of flare system. I did a review of the Bear flares, and some of the commenters in that video compared those to these. Now, the Bear flare is far more luminous than this. I can't remember what the exact candle power is on those, but they're about 50 times brighter than these Orion road flares. Those are for the purpose of wildlife defense, so they have to have a very short burn time, but burn very intensely. These are 15-minute road flares. Maybe I'll light one up just so you can see how it works. So the whole point of these is visibility in adverse conditions. So if you were in a blizzard, or if it was very foggy out, or if it was a downpour or something like that, not only are these going to stay lit, but they're going to provide visibility for you where your reflective material on your vehicle is not going to provide you that illumination. So these are going to be very bright. They don't require batteries like those lithium-ion powered ones. I've seen some people review those on YouTube. I've seen the Urban Prepper review those. That might work for where he lives because it doesn't get cold and the batteries aren't going to die in the back of the vehicle here. And that's something to consider with all the batteries you have, whether it's a jump starter pack or a power pack, is that in winter time the battery power is going to drastically diminish, so you got to constantly be checking on those things. So definitely want to have some of those in your kit. They also can be used to start fires. So I have a socket set Stanley toolkit, just some wipes, cleaning wipes, because hygiene is important. The FiberFix company sent me some samples, so I just decided to throw a couple of those in here. If you haven't seen my review of FiberFix, it's an incredibly strong tape which does what it claims. It is 100 times stronger than Ducttape. It's pretty cool stuff. Now I also have my Nightvision Monocular in here, quote unquote night vision. It does rely on infrared. The reason why I put it in here is because if I don't have it in here, I'm probably never going to use it. It's nothing that I'm going to grab, with any sense of urgency. Typically, especially when it's in the house, I have a big floodlight in my backyard. I don't really need it for around the house. So if I don't put it in the back, it's not going to get used, so that's why it's back there. I've done a review on this. You can go check it out. Now I do have this Powerfilm portable solar charger. I'm still in the process of testing out this system, which is why I don't have a dedicated case or anything for it yet, although it doesn't need it because it is fully encapsulated within itself. And the great thing about the Diamondback cover is that it allows for you to angle your solar panel towards the sun. So at some point I may look into monocrystalline options for a solar panel, but I can tell you that this 30-watt panel, in addition to being daisy chainable, so if you had multiple ones of these, you could connect them all to the same circuit. And I do have another couple 10-watt Powerfilm ones, so they're all compatible in that regard. And these things function exceptionally well in low light conditions, far better than a monocrystalline panel. And I've tested it out where it was totally overcast for the whole day. There was not an inch of sun in the sky, and this thing still was able to provide me with probably about 2,000 milliamps of a 30,000 milliamp hour battery. Not much, but far better than any other solar system would achieve. In full light it works awesome. I got lots of different accessories for it there that I've been testing out. Just a good old buck knife. You know, I don't keep my main knife in here. That's in the bug out bag that's in the cab of the vehicle. I always keep the bug out bag in the cab because I may not have time to get to this section. It's like kind of like the tier system that the urban prepper uses. There's certain things that I want in the back and there's certain things that I want in the front. I do have some redundancy between those two spaces, but mostly it's different stuff, and mostly it's based on urgency. So $1.50. This was the blade that they used in the movie Scream. It's the first blade I got. Good general all-around multi-purpose knife. Not much of a knife guy, so I can't tell you much about it except that it cuts stuff. This is just a camp towel. I've never used it. It's kind of like one of those chamois type materials, so it's supposed to be highly absorbent. But yeah, so you know, if I ever did get caught out in the bush and needed to take an ice dip or something like that in midwinter, that would come in handy. I just have some survival reflective ponchos. Now I do have a lot of shelter options. The majority of what this video is probably going to be is talking about shelter, because in winter time that's going to be what kills you first. In survival situations in general, exposure is what kills you first. Just some foot warmers, hand warmers. Those may be obsolete now depending on how testing of this other product I'm doing goes. I'm testing the Thermacell rechargeable heat packs. I don't know how well they're going to do, but... And of course the tool roll system. I'm glad that this idea has caught on. I put out my first tool roll probably a couple of years ago, and I've been using it since, and it's just a great system to have access to all your tools immediately. Such has borrowed this idea as well, and he seems to like it, although his is a bit more geared towards survival items. So pretty good stuff. So it's, you know, I got some redundancy with regards to tools. Now, up until a day ago, I had a drill in here, but I decided to replace it because it was only a 12-volt drill. I wasn't satisfied with the power it was putting out, so I'm stepping it up to a 20-volt. I do have, I got like hammer drills and stuff like that in the house, but they run on AC outlet power, so I want to get a lithium powered 20-volt drill. And yeah, I think it's very practical to have a drill in the truck because it just makes unscrewing things that much easier. Gotta have duct tape for sure. I also have numerous toiletries, all manner of toiletries, from toilet paper to soap, stuff like that. Toilet paper tablets, never going to be without that stuff. I also keep a full roll of toilet paper in the truck cab. This is the medical kit made by Dr.Bones and Nurse Amy. It's called the gunshot wound medical kit, so it is a, I guess you could say it's a light trauma kit. I did add some other medical implements in there. I'm not going to go in great depth, but it's a nice little hardy medical kit, and I always keep it right on the side where it's going to be needed first. And I try to structure things like that in terms of what I'm going to use first, making the first stuff I'm going to use more accessible on the exterior, and then going into the mainland for stuff which is not as necessary or urgent. So I also have my Yak Trax foot traction wear. These things are excellent, if not necessary, in some icy conditions, especially if you have to push out a vehicle or if you're going up a steep incline where it's very slippery, these things are just excellent. They're built very tough. I think these are the most rugged types you can get. Good down to -40. I think I've done a couple of reviews on those now. I just keep them in this molly thingamajigger that I think I got sent to this in one of those pocket box subscription boxes. Now I also have another set of those that I don't use as often, and they're the Yak Tracks. These are good for running. They have a little less aggressive chains to them in tread, but they're better for, you know, for just running in an urban setting. So these are more exercise oriented. So I don't actually keep these in here, but the Yak Tracks definitely stay in here because they're more wilderness friendly. So in here I just keep polypropylene base layer. I have a military sweater and some North Face ski pants. So if I did have to venture away from the vehicle, I might put that gear on. Of course, you want to have your toque. This one isn't made of fur. I would like to get one of the ones that wasn't synthetic material, but this kind of toque could be a lifesaver. You lose the most heat through your head, so keeping your head and your ears warm is going to be crucial, and these things are great for that. Because this is also a range vehicle, I do keep a spotting scope in there. I lucked out and got this at Canadian Tire for, I think it was, the actual price was $150 and they had it down to $60. So that was just a great deal. You don't get deals like that too often. Now this is the Aris Fortress Gear bug out bag. That's what they call it. They market it to preppers, and I've done a review on this item before. And what it is, it's a clothing which uses this polymer type technology in order to retain heat. So even if you're sweating, it's going to retain heat. So they got videos of guys jumping into, you know, icy lakes and with this stuff on, and they're soaking wet right to the bone, but they're still warm. So this stuff allows you to retain your body heat. And I did test this material on a camping trip last year where it was -30, and it worked rather well. This would be good for, you know, as a base layer if you were stationary. So if you were just camped out in the vehicle, you had no power, you had no heat, but it's very cold out, this would be good for that. I do have a bigger sleeping bag system, but it just takes up too much room in the truck. So I've just went with this Hotcore system. This is the down to 10 degrees, and I also have a Thermolite reactor inner liner, which brings it down to about -20. So it's small, it's compact, it's very warm. It's probably the smallest, warmest sleeping bag you can get. I've considered getting a wool blanket in here as well, but synthetic stuff like this is just as good, if not better, especially when paired with reflective blankets. So I'm not too worried about that. I tend to like the synthetic stuff as a base layer, not so much as an external layer. So if you're going external layers, you're going to want things like fur, animal hides, wool, things like that. Those are what nature has made for the elements, but man makes a much better base layer and sleeping bag. And I don't like down sleeping bags because they do get wet, and once they're wet, they're pretty much useless. So I don't go there. In here I just have some Gaiters, so if you don't know what Gaiters are, you know, go check it out. I'm not going to pull them out of there. Gaiters can be very useful if you're in soupy, muddy conditions. So in the seasonal transitions between fall and winter and spring, those can come in very handy to keep your boots warm. I do have a pair of rubber boots in the back, just a big cheap pair of rubber boots, because if you're trudging through the mud, you can quickly ruin your footwear like that. So it's always good to just keep some rubbers around. Not those kind of rubbers, well, yeah, those kind of rubbers too, I guess. Oh yeah, this is a Thermorest Prolight. It's one of the smallest, most compact things you can get for sleeping mats. So I could probably step that up to a larger foam roll if I wanted to, but this thing's self-inflating for the most part. It's pretty good, and it provides you just enough cushion to not go insane sleeping on the ground. Just got some tent pegs in there, come in handy for mounting tarps. Now, I also have a high-vis thing in there. Obviously, I've never had to use it. I just picked up a cheap one of these for 10 bucks or so, and I think this is something which could come in handy. Not only for visibility's sake, if you're on the side of the road doing some work, or if you wanted to signal for attention, but also in a gray man sense. So something like this might come in handy if there was a disaster situation and you wanted to perhaps stand out or appear more official than you might be. When you see somebody wearing a high-vis thing like this, the tendency is to see them as a construction worker or something like that. So there is some gray man potential here, and for 10 bucks, not a bad thing to have. Especially if you're changing a tire on the side of the road and your legs are sticking out on the road, which they probably shouldn't be, but that might be the only option you have at the time. It's good to be seen.